I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? No. You're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Let's get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
To start off, let's sing a little song. America, fuck yeah. Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah. America, fuck yeah. Freedom is the only way, yeah. Terrorists, your game is through. 'Cause now you have to answer to America, fuck yeah. America, fuck yeah. What you gonna do when we come for you now? It's the dream that we all share. It's the home for tomorrow. Fuck yeah. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with the first re-review of this channel I'm doing. Earlier this year I mentioned about thinking about maybe re-reviewing some stuff. Because let's face it, some YouTube channels do re-review stuff all the time. Like Ground Rap for Life re-review stuff, OCP Communications re-review some stuff. So, why not just re-review some stuff? So, I figured to kickstart this re-review series, let's do a film I had re-watched weeks ago. And it's for a film that the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone had did because they watched the Thunderbirds episode and they randomly got this idea to make a film with that kind of style. After, even though South Park Baron Cut convinced them not to want to make another film, they watched the Thunderbirds episode, and when they heard they thought there would be a marionette style film because the show was a marionette style series, but it wasn't. It was just instead some shitty fucking live action movie that wastes and embarrasses the talent of Ben Kingsley, where he plays this over the top goofy fucking villain who uses these fucking stares on his fucking foes, just basically making an ass out of himself. Same with the late Bill Paxton too, may he rest in peace, and gets wasted in that film. They were disappointed to hear, and when that film came out, that film bombed, and the creator hated it, because they thought there was going to be a film of marionettes, because the show was a marionette thing, it wasn't a live action series. But it wasn't, and they were disappointed about that, but it randomly got the idea to make a marionette film, and that is for none other than Team America World Police. Yeah, which was a film they did, and it also suffered a lot of problems, and it caused them to get out of making movies again. And it's from 2004. So, the plot of Team America, there's this popular actor in Broadway named Gary Johnson, who is apparently one of the best Broadway actors in this world. And apparently whenever he thinks of something sad, he thinks of the day his brother died to gorillas every time. So eventually, the owner of a counterterrorism organization called Team America World Police recruits him because apparently they need someone to act their way to a terrorist. And because he's the best, he's the one they pick. And as well, and also that's because one of their team members died, and it's his replacement. The world begins to crumble around him, and so he has to battle terrorists, celebrities called the Film Actors Guild, or FAG, and falling in love. So, as for my reaction, I remember Team America World Police being one of the first reviews during the beginning years, and it's the first re-review of the channel. So, upon revisiting this movie a few weeks ago, how was this film still? I would say my original score back when I first reviewed this movie has not really changed. No. Like, this was y'all know, like, this was a film I did kind of want to watch in high school, but, like, for a while, but even in high school, I wasn't allowed anywhere near this film. Because apparently it was extremely over the top, extremely vulgar, and way too raunchy for any underage. And in a way, though, it's not really that raunchy, to be honest. Not really. I mean, personally, I kind of thought South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, which I did watch at that age, was kind of in a way much more profane than this movie. But how was this film made? So, more on what I mentioned earlier. The origins of all Parker and Stone had watched Jerry and Sylvia Anderson's Thunderbird show on television. They were bored one day, and it was unable to hold Trey Parker's interest as a child because of the expository dialogue, and it was too slow, and it took itself too seriously. And they inquired about the rights to the series and found out that Universal was doing that shitty live-action movie that I mentioned, and they thought it was going to be a film about puppets at that time. But then they found out it was that shitty live-action movie, and they were disappointed. And you know about that live-action movie already I mentioned. And then eventually, news broke of the duo deciding to create a film about marionettes, not Thunderbirds, but some other movie. Pretty much in a way called what would be World Police. It was around October 2002, and Stone revealed it was going to be a homage to Jerry Anderson. And the news got confirmed in June 2003 when Variety had pretty much quoted that they wanted to do was a send-up of these important, huge action movies that Jerry Bruckheimer makes. So in a way, their marionette film was going to be a satirical take on films from Michael Bay or Jerry Bruckheimer, like all the legendary iconic action films. Before production began, Team America got championed at Paramount Pictures by Scott Rudin because he was executive producer for Parker Stone's previous film South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And after they produced that film, they didn't want to do another movie. But our studio at that time, our studio executives were unenthusiastic about the project because the lack of political correctness and confused by the use of puppets. The executives explained that they would not make profit from an R-rated puppet feature. And that similar things were said about the South Park film, though, because that R-rated anime musical became a huge box office hit when it came out in 1999. And the co-president of Viacom, Tom Freston, Paramount's parent company back then, did support the film, though, and felt Paramount would make more low-budget films that appeal to children and young adults after the studio's failures with films like The Stepford Wives. And according to Trey and Matt, executives finally won over what they saw dailies from the film's production. And one of the problems with this movie, the production was a fucking nightmare. Because like their previous film, it got routine conflict with the MPAA because they returned the film multiple times with NC-17 because there was a certain sex scene with our two main characters that apparently had a lot of certain stuff that they demanded be cut out. So they had to keep editing the scene multiple times to finally get their R rating. And the whole production with the puppets was a nightmare. They had to animate the puppets. They had to move them around. They kind of underestimated how hard making a marionette series really is. And after it barely got completed in time for the October release it was planned for. But if they were able to, they would premiere it at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, California on October 11, 2004, and they released it in the United States on October 15th by Paramount Pictures. And while it did get positive reviews from critics and audiences, it did not do well. It only made like $50 million worldwide back. And it bombed. But honestly, I think that's something Parker and Stone probably did not care if it bombed or not because the production was a nightmare and they clearly did not want to go near a sequel even if it didn't bomb. So I don't think the movie underperforming in theaters mattered to them. I think they were just glad it was over and they could finally move on back to South Park, and they went off making films again for a long time because of how even worse production this movie had. Alright, so here are the good qualities in the story of Team America World Police. So, pretty much we all know the story where terrorists that are led by a fictional version of Kim Jong-il has this routine inspiration to take over the world, and they're up against the Team America World Police. And eventually also peace activists from Hollywood find their way to the film's universe, and social political mockeries are like all rampant. And not a single person is safe from the vigilante response. The characters like get impaled, decapitated, shot up, more. And the hokey puppetry work is actually priceless. Like, you can definitely see the wires visible, but not visible like when the focus joke of a scene would be upstaged by their appearance, but there definitely are still visible at times when it's needed. And the awkward jerky moments that like the walking or dancing are integrated well into the film. In the cinematography, like whenever you see the puppets bounce around or sit stiffly in the chairs, they make the effects pretty obvious, and of course, like easily also another good scene is the whole kind of aerial dogfight while the Team America characters discuss like the soap opera entanglements while they blast enemy planes and cheesy special effects, and like no mention of the, and of course let's not forget the whole brilliant love song Pearl Harbor sucked and I miss you. Like the song is like during the heroic BSOD of Gary is absolutely hilarious and genius. And the other musical songs like the theme song I just sang or everyone has AIDS. AIDS, 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 AIDS. Like the parody song of Rent or Kim Jong Il's I'm so lonely or the sex scene song Only a Woman Can Brighten Up My Day. They all really do fit the general tone style of the movie's humor. And the plot, it's not over convoluted, it's actually very easy to follow plot. It borrows and it parodies a lot of like the old school styled 80s, 90s themed action films. Like that you saw back then when this film came out. And it made very incredible. And the fact that they're all puppets playing these all hardened action hero characters they're referencing, or even the real life people they're referencing, is enough to make anybody laugh throughout the entire film. And the jokes are funny, and like most of the film actors' guild jokes, especially like Kim Jong Il's scenes, are either from Spotswood's meeting Gary. They're funny and they don't fall flat. And like South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, the script and songs get packed with the whole did they just say that moments, and many of the vignettes are definitely good borrowings from a lot of good sources. So how do we start the film off? So basically what we see here is we see our characters, Team America, who are this organization are dedicated to counterterrorism, and they show up in Paris and they defeat this group of terrorists, but because they're pretty incompetent and reckless, they destroy the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and the Arc de Triomphe, and they're like, everything's all great, we stopped the terrorists. And the team includes our female lead, Lisa, and her love interest at the time, Carson, this sidekick named Sarah who thinks she could see through people, Joe, this jock that's in love with Sarah that really doesn't do a lot to the plot, and then you have our asshole, or who's meant to be a parody of those hardened action characters, Chris, who's probably the one character of the film I don't like, and I'll explain that more later. And then after the whole action scene, Carson proposes to Lisa, but then a terrorist kills him in the middle of the act, and he's pretty much telling her, you'll have to move on, you find another man to marry, and she's like, no! And this is a kind of a nice parody of those over melodramatic opening scenes where a certain character dies. And like how the opening scene actually starts off epic at first. Like you have the Paramount logo going backwards, and then the main title is just blowing up in your face. And then the funny stuff bits when it cuts this mini Paris puppet, and before it shows all the other puppets that actually are the ones that you look like throughout the rest of the film. And apparently they did that because they kind of wanted to, I think they wanted to troll critics with it before it cuts the actual puppets going about their daily routine in Paris. And it's a creative, funny way to fool the viewers. Like the first to make you think that they ripped you off at first for a little bit, and then it transitions to a puppet using that puppet. And then a way to build up your first action sequence when that boy bumps into the terrorist, and then the world police showing up, introducing us to the team. Like Parker Stone and Pam Brady, they're ambitious with the film. Aside from the nature, like the point of the film doesn't get lost in the viewers. Like either America being good or bad or neutral. Its actions, like the world police characters. The plot might get a little lost on some people, but some of the there are some gags that kind of get overdone, like the Matt Damon gag. I feel it kind of started beating it. The Matt Damon kind of got a little repetitive, and eventually does kind of start beating a dead horse after a while. But it's on par with the other guys' work. I mean, it's not on par like South Park or something, but it's almost there. And the production is that it's very original and outrageous. Like, you can find yourself laughing or laughing at yourself. And the time the climax hits in North Korea when Gary Johnson's storming Kim Jong-il's palace and shooting down the guards to rescue the team. And the stakes do get pretty high there, and the bets are off. Right there. And it actually becomes a pretty badass action movie right there when he storms the palace. Right there. That's a pretty fun, epic moment. And the whole funny musical numbers do fit the whole plot of the thing. Like with the whole Thunderbird-style puppets, because while they're not fans of the show, they actually thought there'd be a marionette film and decided to actually make one. The polymouth dialogue as well. The movie dates from the era of like Bush's War on Terror. There was everyone that had an opinion and press back then. The comedy is broad and stuff as well. Now, when it comes to the Pearl Harbor song, it's funny, but I've never seen Pearl Harbor, but I've heard that the film is not very good. So, everything I've heard about the film just sounds really bad, but it's honestly a pretty good song that way, because it kind of fits for somebody who isn't just born to direct war melodramatic films and just stick with the genre he should be at in the first place. And you also have other funny bits, like the Durka 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 bits, or meeting Spotswood for the first time, or the infamous throwing up in the alley scene. Like Trey and Matt really do show that they can't take a limited medium and working with the restrictions instead of fight against them, and produces poignant and comical delight. So, then we get to our leader Spotswood needs a new recruit. So, he goes to Broadway and he's mysteriously watching Gary's like parody of Rent called Lease. And he got the Everyone Has AIDS song. And it's good and everyone all praises it. Like, well done, Gary. How do you think of all that great emotion? Well, I think of the most saddest one of my life. And every time he thinks of the saddest one of his life, it's his brother being killed by gorillas. And you hear, Gary, get this thing off of me? Like, it's kind of a tragic moment, but at the same time, you can't really help but kind of laugh at it. It's because it always just plays whenever Gary's sad in his head, in a way of the most random bits. And then, of course, they meet Spotswood, who pretty much recruits him, and then at first jokingly tells him, because like Gary at first thinks he's bringing him to a limo for oral sex, and he's like, I want you to suck. But he rubs off that he's kidding at that bit. And he actually pretty much is recruiting him for the team. So he brings him to Team America's base, Mount Rushmore, and has him use his acting skills to throw a terrorist cell. And he meets the rest of the teammates. And then when Chris meets him, it's like, that's Carter's replacement, a fucking actor. And because like Chris hates actors for certain reasons, and this is kind of where his unlikable side really shows. Now, yeah, it's supposed to be a parody of those hardened action characters, but the difference is hardened action characters like Chris I've seen in normal action films are honestly more likable than Chris really is himself. Like most of his dialogue, once like Gary enters the team, it's either him cussing and threatening Gary at the most random bits for no reason whatsoever. And eventually those threats got really old. Like, that's really half his dialogue around Gary. It's not till he saves him from the fictional Susan Sarandon that he finally apologizes and reveals why he hates actors so much. Like, really, there should have been more development on that. So, and unknown to the team, our main antagonist, the fictional Kim Jong-il, who is definitely a very hilarious parody of a real-life person and a very hilarious villain, where he's supplying terrorists with WMDs. And in the first scene, he just, like, kills his translator because he doesn't need no translator to speak. And it's a nice and also funny and intimidating way to kind of introduce your antagonist. And at first, Gary goes out the door, but Lisa convinces him to kind of think about something for a second. So he has the pilot or driver take him to, like, the whole like Capitol or something like that, or to, like, Abraham Lincoln area, and it's a nicely filmed bit right here where you have Gary visiting stuff like a graveyard or that area, and it's all live action footage where you just have a marionette just standing there looking at the actual statue in our world, and it's very well shot too. Like, I like how they kind of incorporate some of the minor live action bits in there where they're just kind of really filmed, where some bits are all just live action backgrounds and not all green screen backgrounds, because in a way it's still kind of set in our world, except a marionette version in our world. And the song that plays, "Freedom isn't free, it costs folks like you and me. And if we don't all chip in, we'll never pay that bill. Freedom isn't free, no, there's a hefty fucking fee." It's also an iconically very relatable song too. And then, of course, Gary gets second thoughts and he comes back and he joins the team. And so they pretty much give him Sarah, basically the sidekick, gives him this surgery to make him look like a terrorist for Cairo. And so they go to the terrorist group in Cairo, the Durka guys, and I like how that's their language, and you see, like, their whole subtitles in the bit. That was creative and funny right there, and it's one of the funny ways of actually doing a stereotype well. But eventually, though, the team gets discovered and chase ensues, and so they kidnap Gary, but Lisa manages to rescue him, and then Team America is able to kill the terrorist, but Cairo gets left in ruins because, once again, they're so stupid and incompetent. But that's what kind of makes them enjoyable characters and also funny characters. They're funny parodies of action heroes who kind of cause casualties in their actions, and it kind of makes them much more enjoyable. And they get criticism and outrage from the Film Actors Guild, the FAGs, and the Union of Hollywood Actors that are led by apparently what's Gary's favorite actor of all time, Alec Baldwin. Which, really, maybe back then that was probably a favorite for a lot of people, but not anymore, for a lot of reasons. And then, of course, then you get our other funniest scene where Kim Jong-il is watching his sharks, and he's informed that Hans Blix is here to visit him, and his reaction is perfect. "Hans Blix, oh no!" And then Hans Blix enters. "Oh, hello, great to see you again, Hans. Mr. Ill, I was supposed to be allowed to inspect your palace today, and your guards won't let me into certain areas. Hans, we've been through this a dozen times. I don't have any weapons of mass destruction, okay, Hans? Well, let me look around so I can lease you to collect the mine. Hans, you're breaking my balls here, Hans, you're breaking my balls. I'm sorry, but the UN must be firm with you. Let me see your whole palace, or else. Or else what? Or else we will be very, very angry with you, and we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are." And what's more is that apparently Hans Blix actually saw this parody and he found it so funny that he actually wanted to buy the puppet of himself, but he was disappointed to hear he wasn't able to buy the puppet of himself. And he was disappointed that because he actually really liked this scene very much. Even though it was kind of parodying himself, he actually found it very funny. So I like even Hans Blix actually had or has a sense of humor to be for parodies of himself like this. And then, of course, Kim Jong-il decides to lie by showing him and actually put him in a Shark Tank. "Okay, Hans, I'll show you. Step a little to your left. little more, good. And then he just throws and then pretty much drops Hans into a shark tank. And these are like the sharks that are in this scene are actually sharks that are calm. Really, they're not really the aggressive ones. They're these much more different kind that aren't really that aggressive. And when they just attack Hans, it's just kind of funny that they're just kind of swinging a puppet around. And then Hans is in the shark tank. There you go, Hans Blix. How you like that, you fucking cocksucker? And the sharks are killing. You have any idea how fucking busy I am, Hans Bricks? Well, fuck you. You want inspection? Well, inspect that, you piece of shit. And then it just tears his head off. What, you think I'm just a petty arms there? I'm planning the attack. Congratulations, Team America. You stopped nothing. And that's probably to me the funniest bit of the film. Easily the part that's always just the easiest to quote. And then you get to Mount Rushmore, where the team are celebrating, and after Chris gives another annoying death threat to Gary again, right there, and so, and then of course he steps outside, and then he encounters Lisa there, and him and Lisa have their first conversation where he tells her that as a child his acting talent was caused by his older brother being killed by gorillas. And then that gets the two closer to each other, but then Lisa, like, it's too soon to be having feelings for you. Maybe feelings are feelings because we can't control them. And he promises he's not going to die this night. And this is where you get our sex scene now. The theatrical version of the sex scene is funny. Unfortunately, the one in this version, the unrated version, no. Like, the one in the one of the theatricals funny because, and really not that bad. Like, as while the puppets are naked, that's the thing. There's lots of Barbie dolls that can be unclothed and naked, so it's really not too big of a deal. And a theatrical sex scene is basically just how a little girl would play with her Barbie dolls whenever making a Barbie doll or a Ken doll she have really kiss each other whenever she would play with her dolls. Really. So it kind of comes off kind of harmless in the theatrical version. I mean, they do some sexual things, but it's not really, it doesn't really feel too bad there. And so it's actually funny. The unrated version, they basically do pornish stuff like poop on one another or piss on one another or do some kind of more disturbing movements. And yeah, that is not something I find funny. It's really not. But then, of course, after that, they become in love with each other. And then after that, they blow up the terrorists blow up Panama Canal for what Team America did, and then thousands get killed. And so the FAG blame this on Team America, and then Kim chastised the terrorists for detonating when bombed too early, though. And then apparently some protesters are outside their base, and Michael Moore is among the protesters. But then Gary feels bad for what happened, and right there, so he resigns from the team. Especially after hearing Alec Baldwin slamming on, because apparently Alec Baldwin's his idol. And then the remaining members decide to still try to go to the Middle East and North Africa, despite the fact that it would be a suicide mission, but they don't care. And there's a bit of a fallout between the two girl characters, because apparently Sarah's also in love with Gary, and they fall out, and she's mad at Lisa for banging Gary the other night. Because apparently she loved him, despite the fact that never knows that apparently Joe loved her. So then, of course, because they're too distracted and too depressed, they get defeated and captured by Kim Jong-il's forces, and Michael Moore blows up Team America's base. Then, of course, in North Korea, he invites the FAG, a world leaders, to a peace ceremony Kim Jong-il does, and wants to detonate several bombs around the world while they're distracted. And then you get our song, I'm So Lonely. And then after Lonely, it cuts to Gary depressed, now with a beard, drinking, getting drunk at a bar. This one fan walks up to him, hey, you're the actor from the scene, it is you. Do that scene where everybody gets AIDS. I don't act anymore, gave it up. Come on, just see. I said get away from me. I'm completely lost. I've hit rock bottom. And then this drunk homeless guy walks over to him. Easy as you are. Gotta calm down there, Chuck. I've hurt people. I'm a dick. Oh, being a dick ain't so bad. And then he got this epically great speech. You see, there's three kinds of people. Dicks, pussies, and assholes. And stuff. And it's like, easily, like, yeah. I don't think I can say the whole speech because I probably could get in trouble for that on YouTube, but it's pretty iconic. And then after the speech finishes, Gary just throws up, and then the bartender's like, "All right, that's it. Get out of here, drunk lowlife." And Gary's outside the bar. Letha, you here? And literally, when he's outside, he then basically starts throwing up for 5 minutes, and it goes on pretty great. Like whenever he finishes, he gets up, and then throws up again. Then when he gets up, throws up even longer and longer until he passes out in a literal giant ass puddle of his own vomit. Right there. Like it passes the action genre wonderfully well. The gig of the over-top explosion and gory deaths is clear. Lead characters pausing and quick discussions about their feeling in the middle of the combat. Like it shows how ridiculous the concept is with the writing. And Trey and Matt do really voice most characters themselves in it, minus the two main female characters of the team. And so it's definitely nice to hear their iconic South Park voices to these characters in this vulgar, violent as hell puppet flick. Like, Trey and Matt are no one's side but their own with this film right there. And, like, yeah. And now, when the film does kind of run out of steam, I feel once it introduces the Film Actors Guild, you kind of wonder if this format just works better for this like branded comedy, but it's still pretty damn funny. I appreciate how it's aware that Team America is just sticking its knob into others' affairs, being really obnoxious to the rest of the world. They can't just ask them to just nicely stop. And the songs are all but the bloody hilarious songs make the movie more iconic. Even if it still doesn't hold a candle to South Park, Bigger, Longer, and a Cut, or the South Park TV show. And so, after you get the montage of Pearl Harbor sucked, and I miss you. And the song's just funny how it just basically jabs at Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor film. And then it goes to the team's base, and he finds Spotswood alive. And of course... like when Spot's like, there is no I in Team America. Yeah, I think that's the quote goes. And then of course intelligence reminds him, yes, there is. And like either way, though he doesn't trust Gary and he still recounts him the time he thought he was going to perform oral sex on him. And he actually makes Gary do that for real to be able to regain his trust. Which he does, and he regains his trust, and so he has to undergo 1 day of training so he can go and rescue the team. Because while the team's being held hostage, Kim Jong-il shows up and announces his plan, and then when Lisa tries to talk him out of it, he just gets her a front row seat to the show. And of course, then after the whole 1 day training, you get this awesome epic scene where Gary goes to Kim Jong-il's base and uses his skills to infiltrate the base, and once he's inside, he takes off the robe and he shoots all the guards. Right there, and he'll and he's just shooting them all. That's a very, for a action comedy, that's a very epic, badass action scene right there. Even if it's all a puppet-themed action scene, it's still very epic and iconic, just the way he infiltrates and shoots them all down one by one. Then he goes in there and frees the team. And when he tells them Spotswood's alive, at first the team also don't trust him anymore, but Spotswood tells him that Gary got his trust back. And so they basically let him accompany them on the mission. And so basically, at first, Joe decides that Sarah and Gary are going to go some other way. Him and Chris are going to team up together. But Sarah decides, apparently after finding out Joe apparently loves her, decides to team up with Joe. And so Chris and Gary are the ones who team up. And so they get confronted by the FAG members. And they kill most of their members in ensuing fights. And, Joe and Sarah's scene dealing with them is basically where they get confined to this room with the Kim Jong-il's Panthers, who are literally these two house cats. those cats that like Sarah's apparently able to use her psychic abilities to have them kill the two FAG members, imprisoning them. And then Gary uses his acting skills to save Chris from a fictional Susan Sarandon. And then after that, this is where Chris apparently finally confesses why he dislikes actors, is because apparently he went to watch Cats when he was 19 years old. He got invited backstage, and the cast raped him. Which really, that's not very much of a good, that's honestly not too much of a really compelling backstory to really kind of invest you in this asshole of a character who just did nothing but act rude and an asshole to Gary the whole entire film. Like, there should have been more on that, and to maybe make his dislike for Gary feel actually more earned. Like, the film, though, actually does attack celebrity culture and not just politically active individuals. Right there. And the argument that Parker so attacks celebrity culture around celebrities is kind of the way Johnson's acting abilities regarded in the film. It's kind of a superpower, not like a Jedi skill kind of superpower. Like, Johnson does play a Jedi mind trick on the guards. And a ridiculous regard for the acting of world police enforces the inflated regard the public has for actors in general. There's not much to say about the actor characters. Like, Trey and Matt do a good job of portraying the puppets that the actors are parodying. Like, you have this one Samuel Jackson one, like, come on, hit me, like, during one fight scene. And the puppets are also good and well designed as well. And, like, they do the job really well. And the score is really cool. Like, there's songs with lyrics that they're in the score too, like, both of which are great. And the score is type of typical and normal. And there's not much to say about the cinematography because it works well. They managed to make it really close to real. You see shots that could have been from any other movie. It doesn't have an animated or cartoon look. While it's technically somewhat an animated film, there's time it's kind of more marionette style. And the backgrounds are kind of a lot of times whenever it's not at the base or it's in like other landscapes like roads, it's a live action set. Like, the score, it makes the movie more fun and a bigger parody. So now we go on to the finale. So after the team kills the FAG members, they crash the peace ceremony, and so Gary runs on stage to deliver the Trump speech, arguing that dicks, criticized by pussies, are necessary to stop the assholes, and convinces the world's leaders to unite. And then they turn on Kim Jong-il, who pretty much tries to get Outball and do something else like global warming, incorporated, and he's booed. And then Kim Jong-il's like, you're worthless, Alec Baldwin, and then shoots him because he's unable to counter Gary's argument. But then Lisa is able to pretty much kick him over a balcony, and he gets impaled on his German's hat. And of course, Gary is able to just stop the bomb easily by just pressing the cancel button like that, and then the world is automatically saved. And then he reconsoles with Lisa. And then Kim Jong-il reveals his form as this cockroach. And he flees on a spaceship vowing to return. But then Gary and Lisa happily begin a relationship. And the team reunites. And Chris like, I hate to break this up, but there's still more bad guys to fight. And they're like, let's show the world that police are back in business. And so they go off to fight the world's terrorists once again. They basically fly off and they leave. That's how Team America ends. And really, I feel this ending kind of feel a little abrupt. It's like they probably did have faith production this would go smooth. And they probably ended it with a sequel hook on purpose. But the production didn't go smooth, so they just chose not to pursue it or any kind of puppet film again in their lives. So basically, they kind of avoided any more puppets like the plague after they filmed this movie for a lot of good reasons. Alright, so now I have any bad qualities of the film. Yeah, first off, the unrated sex scene in the movie. The theatrical one is actually funny. The unrated one was just vile. Like, it's what caused an NC-17 rating in the first place. Like, nobody wants to see a porno-styled scene with puppets or no puppets. And apparently it was supposed to be some censored decoy thing that apparently they wanted to be cut. So apparently they wish they didn't add it. But honestly, they really shouldn't have thought of it in the first place to begin with. And there's times when, like, the whole gag with Matt Damon, like, eventually after like the fifth time, it kind of got old and repetitive quick. And because like the gag with the Matt Damon character did kind of feel like it was beating a dead horse after the fifth time, and it just stopped being funny after a while. And there's not really, I feel there should have been more character developments, like more scenes like Gary being on a team to maybe, make the third act breakup feel more real, or make the romance scenes with Lisa feel more real. Because after the first mission, they just automatically fall in love, and really just simple like that. And the third act breakup kind of randomly happens, so it just goes nowhere. And the subplot with Joe and Sarah, really pointless because it wasn't really needed. It wasn't really touched up on much. And then after Chris revealed that she was surprised and there's not really much of a realization. And then after they're rescued, she just decides to team up with him anyway. So it just really goes nowhere. I feel you really didn't need a romance subplot between them if you weren't going to send it anywhere. So what was the point of that? And I fucking hate Chris in this movie. Yeah, he has a backstory why he hates actors, but it wasn't really much of a worthy apology because most of the film he just keeps acting like a prick. Right there. So the ending also feels abrupt because they probably wanted to do a sequel at first, but they saw how hard puppets were to film. I kind of wish they just ended it on a normal ending. But other than those, it's an enjoyable comedy. And it is a shame. Its filming was not pleasant, and the movie just did not do well at the box office. Right there. Because I don't think it really deserved to flop. I mean, even if it was a box office hit, I don't think it would have gotten a sequel anyway. Because Trey and Matt hated filming the movie, and they never wanted to touch another marionette ever again because of how much of a nightmare this film was to film. So in the end, I would say to probably stream Team America World Police because while it is a good film, it's not something like South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, or really the South Park series in general, because it does suffer a few faults at times, and some dead horse gags. But anyways, that's it for my review of Team America World Police. And when I rank Team America World Police, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you're a fan of Parker and Stone's works and really want to see a marionette-style film that's done like a Thunderbirds film, except if it were rated R, then I would stream Team America World Police, no doubt. But don't expect something like South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. If we're going to rank Team America World Police, I'm going to give Team America World Police a 7 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Team America World Police. Now, I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about Team America World Police, whether you love this movie a lot, obviously, once again, or whether you're just not a big fan of this movie, or it's just not for you. And I'm just going to put this back on the shelf below. And until then, guys, that will be it for this first re-review of the channel. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.